Good day. Today we are going to begin with an online awareness session, the series of the 700. It will be an introductory session on the upcoming courses. However, we wanted to define in this session who are the customers. What do customers represent? And we are going to cover through the introductory remarks the role, the place of the customers in organizations. We made a subdivision of the customers. We called it customer groups or customer categories. And I'm going to announce some sessions in English on the customer related courses. Let us begin by the definition of the customer. We considered two specific definitions. One of them is a very narrow one and the other is a wide definition. The narrow definition of the customer is it's the end user. He or she is the end user, or in some cases, if we are talking about FMCG or HoReCa sector, specifically restaurants, we can call them consumers or direct beneficiaries. And about the wide definition of the customer, we also consider, on behalf of the narrow definition and users, consumers and beneficiaries, we consider also the decision makers, but also the recommenders, the prescriptors and the payers. Let me give you an example. For example, if a family will go for a casual dining, let's say fast food or casual dining, for eating hamburger, usually the consumers are the kids, usually I'm saying, in most of the cases. The payer will be the father, and ironically, the decision maker is not necessarily the kid or the payer. In most of the cases, it's the mother. So this is indeed a numeristic example that I'm giving, but let us take the case of the patient, for example, in pharmaceutical products. Usually, the payer might be a third party, and the prescriptor, the recommender, might be the medical doctor. So that's why the decision maker sometimes can differentiate from the recommender or the payers. So these are the main definitions, the narrow definition and the wide definition of the customers. Now, in our case, we have considered the role of the customer in our model of 954. We considered the role of the customer here, and every organization should manage 9 elements, including managing the customer experience, attracting the customer, retaining the customers, handling customer complaints, that we will cover shortly in our online training sessions. In this case, we have considered the big stakeholders of the organization. Let's begin by the internal customers or the employees, the managers. We also consider the society, the owners and the stakeholders, but also the partners and the suppliers. However, we have considered the core stakeholder of every organization, the customer themselves. Because without the customers, the organization, in this case, in bold blue, the organization cannot survive. That's why all our vision and mission and strategic objectives should be based on the needs of the customers and also indeed of the other stakeholders. In order to classify the customers and in order to attract them and retain them, we have considered some categories of customers, and In our case, we have taken two axes. The first axis is the satisfaction of the customer. Okay, there are here customers that are satisfied or dissatisfied. And we consider a group that still is staying our customer or leaving or thinking of leaving. And this model can be applied to service-related companies such as banks, hospitals, insurance companies, the HoReCa sectors, hotel, restaurant, cafe, but also to product-related companies. It can be fast-moving consumer goods, or it can be cars and brands, specifically of cars, of any other product, or clothing even. So, whenever we consider those axes, we will have four kinds of customers. One of them, the group that are satisfied and staying, we consider them as loyal customers. And you will see that in all organizations, we will have the four categories. The second category that we consider are satisfied customers, and they are leaving or thinking of leaving. This is very instinctive, and this is very psychological. So you will see that it's not really depending on the product or the service. It depends on the psychology of the human being, that sometimes he prefers, even though he is satisfied, he prefers to go and make shopping and try other products or services. So in this case, we consider them as mercenaries or defectors. Those are the people that if somebody gives them something more than what we are giving, they prefer the other brand or company or product or service. The third category is the most attempting to the image of our organization. If we are managing a company, it's those who are dissatisfied and leaving, and those are the worst. Why? Because they are the worst. Because they not only leave for competition, but also they will have a negative word of mouth, and they will affect the image of our organization. However, we are going in the four cases. In the next courses, we will see how to move forward with the four categories. I'm not saying that those categories, we call them terrorists because they terrorize the organization. And fortunately, in most of the developing and solid companies, the rate is very low. It's less than 3 to 5%. And the fourth category that we will see is those are dissatisfied from our product or service, and however, they are staying our customers. We call them hostages. Though there are few reasons we identified them, and especially if you buy a car, for example, after a year you're not satisfied, you're not going necessarily to change it unless if you have all the resources. Or if you have a loan, for example, and you're not satisfied from your UCO, Universal Credit Organization, or your bank. So until the loan is over, most of the cases you will continue being the customer. So this is the idea. That's why we call them, those are hostages of the organization. Again, in the next course, we will see how we are going to adapt our policies to the four categories. At the end, let me share with you that in the upcoming courses of the series of the customers, we will see the customer needs. We will see that there are three categories of customer needs according to the Kano methodology. The customer categories by industry, we will see for the banking sector, for the car sector, for the investors. For example, last week we were doing a course for investors in Nigeria, and we identified four categories of investors. Those are, for example, we consider the following acts. Those they need time for decision making, or those who are very fast, or they are rationally decision makers or emotional decision makers. All those we are going to see them in separate short courses. We are going to see together the customer experience, the customer service life cycle, handling customer complaint, etc. So at the end, let me make a synthesis. We are going to begin with this 700 courses series, all the courses related to customers. We are going to see the customer experience, and today we saw also we defined the customer. We considered a narrow definition but also a wide definition. In the narrow, we said that the customers are the end users, the consumers, the beneficiaries, and in the wide definition, we saw the decision makers, who are the recommenders, the payers. As I gave you the example in the insurance industry, the third party, sometimes they are the payers. We saw together the place of the customer in managing organization and the central role of the customer in the stakeholders. We saw the four categories of the customers. We saw that we have loyal customers, mercenaries or defectors. We saw that there are some terrorists, but also some hostages. And indeed, our objective as managing organization, it will be to push them towards loyalty. And in the next courses, we will see the how-to. And at the end, we saw the upcoming courses. Thank you very much. Stay safe, have a great day.